Welcome everyone. I'm super excited that you all are joining for tonight. I have a lot of information to go through. I've actually presented this particular topic in the past, but I really went through, I was like, let me just hit on some things that I know that women can walk away from and will, it drastically improve your finances, or at least give you the confidence on really how to move forward. I'm all about practicality and making sure that you can actually, that you can have things to do right after you get off this webinar. So for those of you who do not know me, my name is Shantae Moore. I'm a certified financial educator, also an investment advisor representative, what's called a fiduciary. I'm also a certified college consultant, which I always say I need to talk more about college planning. And for some of my Native participants, I also own a company called Native American Financial Literacy Services. I'm the director there, and I'm also an enrolled member of the Navajo Nation. So I'm so happy to see all of my Southwestern sisters on the call today. But overall, I just teach people how money works. I've been in the financial services industry for 16 years. Actually, this is the beginning. Every New Year's Day is the beginning of a new year of me being in this industry. And really quickly learned that the traditional financial industry is not built for people like me, minorities, women, Black and brown communities. And so that's why I'm so passionate about teaching all areas of financial literacy and trying to offer as many resources as possible to folks out there so that they can improve, their finances. So just a quick disclaimer for tonight. Everything that I'm sharing is strictly for educational purposes. Even though my profession, is quote unquote a financial advisor, I'm not here to give you any advice through some of the things I'll talk about. I will actually speak about very specific strategies that you could take advantage of or implement, but in no way am I saying that that's something that will absolutely work out for you. So it shouldn't be anything that I'm saying should not be the final authority on like any tax issues, legal issues. I'm not necessarily here to solicit or offer any particular financial service or product. I will definitely share resources, that's for sure. If you all know me, I share a lot of resources in my webinars. And I will be going through a couple examples. I'll be sharing a couple stories. These are all hypothetical. I'm not going to name anyone in particular that I've worked with in the past. And then most importantly, you won't learn everything on this webinar. I'm going to touch on a lot of topics tonight. And every topic that I talk about, I actually probably have a whole nother 1 or 2 hour presentation just on that particular topic. And I'll let you know as I go through it if I've actually recorded something that's more in depth, that'll really go into detail about something in particular. Otherwise, tonight is just a really high level conversation about some very important things that I feel that are pretty useful. So I really just want to get started and really, taking a step back of why did I create this presentation? Because women have very unique financial needs that often are not often not discussed. When I think of what's available, what resources and tools that women have available, there aren't a whole lot. And the first thing, and so in turn, that makes women not, talk about these things, or we're a little bit shy, or maybe we might be a little bit embarrassed about our financial situation. But I feel that it's super important to have these conversations when it comes to, just talking about money. Because I know that most people are, and wherever you come from in your cultural background, maybe your familial background, it's taboo to talk about money, right? So I think we need to really change that narrative, because it's really more important than ever now that we're having these conversations. So I want to start by sharing a couple of statistics just to understand why is this such an important conversation for us. First of all, statistically, we know that 43% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And actually post-COVID, this pandemic that we're still living through, that number has actually increased to 63% of Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck. the harrowing statistic is that of that 63%, 85% of those individuals are women who are living paycheck to paycheck. And then we always hear about the wage gap, right? We know that women earn 82 cents for every $1 that's earned by a man. And it's not necessarily, that companies are paying more, than a man for the same position than a woman. Maybe in some very, very rare instances is that still the case. Most likely not. The reason why we're actually not earning as much money is because there's a lot of times when we're just not working. We're not clocking in. We're not at the job, to earn that actual income. And there's many reasons. It's because we take a lot of days off for work. If you think about it, who's the first one that drops everything if your child has an emergency at school? Who's the one who often steps up when our parents need someone to help take care of them? Or even for our partners, our spouses, if they needed support. We're the ones who often will take time away from making money in some regard to help others. And that's that's the reason why we're not making as much. And these interruptions, they can make big, big impacts on our finances. We're looking at not having as many opportunities for promotions at the workplace. We're not able to really get to those higher levels of income. And for some women, you're probably not even able to fully invest in all of the retirement benefits that are available just because of us having to take on these extra matters. And women are more likely to work minimum wage and lower income occupations than men. And at the same token, when women do pursue, better career opportunities, they're really trying to go up the corporate ladder. We say that there's often a broken rung on the corporate ladder because we represent 48% of entry-level workers, but only 21% of us are executives in the C-suite level, the higher level executives. And then during COVID-19, we have to, I'm sick of talking about it, but when it comes to finances, it changed so much drastically for folks. During COVID, mothers are the ones who are really bearing the brunt of the pandemic, and they're the ones who are facing long-term employment penalties as a result. We have seen a drastic situation where there wasn't childcare. Mothers had to reduce their work hours, 4 to 5 times as much as the fathers. So really, if you're trying to get a raise or promotion over the next 6 months or years, that's something that women have been missing out on an opportunity in just the most recent years. Whereas fathers, on the other hand, are really benefit from those opportunities just because they've been able to continue working uninterrupted when they were able to go back to work. So when we look at a couple other numbers, the median annual earnings for men is more than $57,000. And so at 52 cents for every dollar that's earned by a man, the median annual earnings for women is just a little over $47,000. So when you think of someone who's taking care of a family, how significant would that extra $1,000 be for that family? So when we look over a lifetime, the gender pay gap, it adds up over time. It actually accumulates to costing us over $450,000. We make less money. We spend an average of 12 years less in the workforce. And as a result, we have a lower amount of lifetime earnings. And so why is that important? Because when we retire, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in the presentation, when we retire, women typically earn 80% in Social Security benefits compared to a man, because Social Security is based on your annual income every year and as well as how much time you've worked. So if we're not working and making as much money as possible, then on the back end for Social Security, we're also not in a position to qualify for the most money that we can receive from that benefit. And so the last slide I'll share here before I switch back is, after going through these statistics, and trust me, I'm not going to be the Debbie Downer. There's a lot of hope that we'll talk about, but is it it's very clear why there's no surprise that women, they often feel less in control of their finances, and women typically tend to feel less off track when it comes to achieving their financial goals. And that's why we're having this conversation today. So my first tip is talking about money, but more importantly, increasing your financial knowledge. We have to take the responsibility to understand that we need to find tools and resources to become financially literate. And why is there a need for financial literacy? This is a big topic, a big word that's being shared in the last couple of years. It's become very, very popular. Well, we know that most North Americans cite money as their number one worry. When you have conversations with your loved ones and your friends, what's the one thing that they're stressed about? Money, paying bills, not having enough to do something. It's a real reality. Folks are dealing with a lot of debt. They know that they're not saving enough for retirement, if they're saving at all. And unfortunately, most families are just really ignoring that big bright pink elephant in the room, which is they know that they don't have a handle on their finances. And we often don't look at our finances until disaster or tragedy strikes. And again, we saw that very significantly with COVID-19. Folks not having money saved, they were losing their jobs. We were losing loved ones who were breadwinners. I want to help all women on this call and anyone who's watching any of the recordings. I don't want that to happen to you. We need to be proactive, and I applaud everyone for being on this webinar and gaining access to this information. And why? Because we don't learn about it in school. Only 21 out of 50 states require high schools to teach at least one class on personal finance. And I know Chicago and Illinois is not one of those states. I know that for a fact. I don't, check your state. They might not have that particular requirement. When we learn about money, we typically learn about it, especially as adults. We learn about our money and finances. We've learned through trial and error, through making mistakes. I always talk when I teach the youth classes, I tell them, in my teens, 18, 19, 20, when I first was introduced to credit cards, that's when I screwed up everything. And now later in life, I'm barely, finally coming out of that hole that I dug myself in from those past mistakes. Or we typically learn or mimic financial habits from our environment. Now, what does your environment look like? Like for me, and I'll tell a little bit myself as we go through this presentation. I grew up on the south side of Chicago to a single mother, my sister and I, and my family was poor. We didn't have any money. No one came to my mother's door to say, hey, let me help you save money and invest money for your daughter's futures. They, the financial industry won't even come to our neighborhoods to talk about this stuff. But if you don't come from money, and your family doesn't have money, how do you learn about this? We typically don't. So it's not your fault if you're not where you want to be financially. But there's hope because now we know that financial literacy is typically the way out. When you learn how money works, you have a clear path to improve your finances. Financial illiteracy is the number one economic crisis in the world. When you think of the word illiterate, that means that you cannot read. Imagine not being able to read and trying to navigate the world. It would be very tough. Same thing with our finances. When you really don't know how money works, it's very hard to navigate making financial decisions and not knowing if it's something that'll count against you. Because I know that when you're financially literate, you absolutely know how to make your money work for you and not against you. We always hear that term, I want to make my money work for me. Being financially literate, you know the right things to do for that. You also can't be taken advantage of because you don't have financial knowledge. I think of all of our communities. How many people do you know that are signing up for crazy loans with 300% interest rates, or they've been taken advantage of? There's so many scams. People are just they just don't know, and again, it's not their fault because they just don't have that knowledge. And one thing I can absolutely say is that when you are financially literate, you can make confident, wise, and strategic financial decisions with your finances. I ultimately say, Having financial literacy and being financially educated means you have the ability and the skills and the knowledge to manage your financial resources effectively to achieve financial stability. And I want to make this very, very clear. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It really doesn't. I have a lot of folks who come to me, or they don't come to me rather, because they're like, oh, Shantae, wait till I make more money, or wait till I can save more money. The things that I'm going to talk to you about tonight, it doesn't matter how much money you make, whether you can save $5 a month or $500 a month. The concepts are the same. The concepts are the same. So I really want folks to understand you don't need a lot of money to be financially literate. So I hope that gives you hope. The first thing I really want to share is a resource that I always talk about in all of my classes. The first resource that I want to give you is an opportunity to have a tool to become financially literate. This book called How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker, written by Tom Matthews and Steve Seawold. This is the best book on personal finances that I have ever seen in my 16 years in the financial industry. Absolutely, without a doubt. Any other book that I've seen is super thick, uses big words, it's boring, it's complicated, just it's too much. It's no wonder why people just take something and they just throw it away because it's too much. This book for me is the easiest book about personal finances, again, that I've ever seen. And I want to offer everyone who doesn't have a copy, I know quite a few of you already have a copy. As a matter of fact, if any one of the ladies on here have a copy of the book, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and share your thoughts about the book.
Hi, Shantae. This is Susan.
Hey, Susan. How are you?
Susan Citrono-Isaki. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having this wonderful seminar for us women. I love this How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker. And I agree with you. It's one of the best books out there to help us learn about how money works. And what I like about it is that it plays out so many different characters of real life, like people, and they all have conversations about money and finances, and it's very practical and amusing. It's enjoyable to read through and begin to learn. And then, of course, when there are topics that need to be more explained, it's great to know that there are advocates and advisors, people like you, to help, teach us more and give us more details.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that, Susan. I really appreciate it. Yes, this book is super fun. So I posted a link in the chat. You can go to howmoneyworks.com/Shantae W. Moore/book and request a free copy of this book for me. I went to go and get it. One thing I really like about the book is that it has a lot of pictures. It's super engaging, a lot of big letters. It's really, really easy to read. And when you go to my website, you'll be able to see a couple examples of the book. Again, super colorful. It's simple. So easy that anyone from age 8 to 80 can read this book and learn. So when you go to the website, click on right here in the middle where it says request a free copy from me. This will open an email for you to send an email to me that says, hey, I would like a copy of the book. Make sure that you put your address in that email so that I can get it out to you right away. So again, my gift to you, for anyone who's joining who does not have a copy already, please start being responsible and again, use the tools and resources that are out there. I've sent out, hundreds of these copies, hundreds of copies of the book. So again, howmoneyworks.com/Shantae W. Moore /book to request a copy of that book. So I think I harped on enough about increasing your financial knowledge. So as I continue talking about my first financial tip, which is talking about money, I also think it's so important that you meet and work with qualified licensed financial professionals. I cannot harp on this enough. Why? Because financial professionals We do this day in and day out. Our jobs are to help folks with their finances. And I really want to talk about a couple of things so that you can go out in the world and determine how is somebody qualified to even help you. And obviously I might be a little biased because this is what I do for myself. But again, I want you all to be, resourceful when you're going out and having these conversations. So first of all, we have to be licensed. We operate in a very heavily regulated industry, which means that we should have licenses, in particular investments. If anyone says that they can help you with investments, they should have what's called a securities license. And you can actually verify that they have this license, or they should have a couple of them. I don't want to get too deep into it, but you can go to this website, www.brokercheck.finra.org, and you will be able to actually, let me pull that website up. You'll actually be able to put in somebody's name, and hopefully they'll tell you their company and all that stuff, and you'll be able to actually find their information to verify that they are who they say they are. So this is what the website looks like. So for example, you can type in my name, Shantae Moore, because I do have all of my licenses to talk about investments in that thing. When you type in, there's my profile, and then you're able to look at someone's profile and see, how long they've been in the industry. They actually cut me out 4 years because I had a moment where I was paused and did some other things. Again, they show the licenses, my exams that I passed, state licenses that I hold, the companies that I actually work with and am affiliated with. Here are the exams, the securities exams that I was talking about. Other places that I hold other licenses. So I'm in Illinois. I do a lot of business in Indiana, Florida. This is the type of profile that you want to be able to check and verify with anyone, again, who says that they can help you with investing. The reason why I mention that specifically, because I see a lot of life insurance agents, all they have is a life and health insurance license, claiming that they can help you with investing, and it's really not. What they're actually trying to pivot you to is an insurance product, because that's all they can offer. Investment licenses are very, very particular. Another question, and when you meet someone, ask them these questions. Another question to determine and ask them was, well, how many financial and insurance companies do they actually work with, or do they represent? How many products can they offer you? How long have they been in the industry as a licensed financial professional? I know my partner, Susan, was just on. She's actually one of my associates in the office that I work with. She's been in the industry for over 10 years. She's probably been longer than myself. I've been doing this for 16 years. So I'm not here to say that if somebody's brand new that they don't have experience or can't help you. But if that's something that's important to you, ask them, how long have you actually been doing what you do? How are they compensated? That's a huge question to always ask someone, is how do you actually make money? If I invest my money with you, how do you get paid? If I buy this life insurance policy from you, how do you get paid? And I'll tell you this, if someone says, oh, you don't need to know how much money I make, that's why you're asking me that. That's a huge red flag. Run far, far away from that person. Because again, we actually required, with me as a fiduciary, because I hold the highest level of licenses available, I have to disclose how I get compensated on anything that I recommend. And then the last thing you really want to determine is, can someone actually give you unbiased advice? Are they really going out there into the market and looking for the best financial products for you? The bottom line is that anyone that you choose to trust and help you with your finances, is that if they give you recommendations, if they give you quote unquote advice, and if at some point in the future you say, you know what, I think they gave me bad advice, or they really didn't pay attention to me as a client, what if somebody mismanaged your money? The bottom line is, can you file a lawsuit against this person? What recourse can you take if someone that you chose to work with actually does something that's not in your best interest? I mention that because, a lot of times we're looking at social media people and who aren't financial professionals, or, your best friend in the cubicle who's sitting next to you at work, who's trying to give you investment advice and say, oh, I got this crypto thing, you should do it too. And if you were to follow somebody's advice like that and they're not a professional, you have no recourse if it doesn't work out for you, or if it works out terribly or super bad, because they're not professional. So that's the one thing, is you have to understand, as a consumer, as an investor, especially with investments, you have recourse, because we have a highly regulated industry to where I could lose my licenses. I could be barred from the industry. I could go to jail. I could pay really hefty fines because of the licenses that I hold. And I think it's super important that when you seek guidance, that you have someone who has that accountability that they have to uphold for themselves. But also, professionals help you set objective financial goals. You know, when you're thinking about your money, that's like everything, right? Especially as women, you know, when you have a professional, you know, for me, I look at it, I talk to my clients about their goals, but I'm also able to stay objective. I'm also able to give you clear direction to say, objectively, this is the route that I think you should take. You know, I take the emotions out of the process. Whereas you could be all emotional, you'll have someone who's objective, and again, who can help you with your goals. Also, professionals really help you determine the current state of your affairs and help you develop a plan. You know, I meet a lot of clients who they do a lot of things, but sometimes they're missing that one major factor, and it could be a huge factor that they just didn't think about or they just didn't know. And one thing I also want to share is that when you work with a financial professional, because of the relationships that we have with the insurance and investment companies, those companies often give us access to the best financial products, the best investment accounts, the best of the best in financial products and services that's out there. And a lot of people, I don't think, realize that. Yes, you can Google and open up your own accounts and you could do a lot of things, but typically the best products, they really do a lot, really great for our clients. You can typically only get them through a financial advisor. So sometimes, like if you're on a Google search, like for example, I'll talk about annuities a little bit. And you're looking at annuities online and you're at a company's website and you're like, oh, I really like this annuity. I really, really like it. You'll probably get to a page on the website where they say, great, we're glad you're interested in our annuity. Go talk to your financial professional, because that's the only way that you'll be able to get access to it. I think a lot of people don't realize that. And then lastly, yes, we live in a world where there's so many resources and tools, and I'm very happy that you can really learn a lot online on YouTube, YouTube University, I call it. You can really Google a lot. I think there's a lot of really good information out there now. In the past, very, very sketchy. Now I think there's really good information. There's a lot of organizations who want to provide financial literacy resources. But again, I believe engaging in a professional is still beneficial, because this world, this financial industry, it changes a lot, and a professional can really help you navigate those changes. They have the expertise. We're constantly being trained on new resources and laws and new products that we can constantly keep our clients abreast of and help them with their goals. So, okay, let me stop harping on that. The last point that I want to talk about for my first financial tip. Yeah, I'm going over, guys. I'm sorry. I'm only on tip number 1 and I got 20 minutes. That's not happening. Okay. So the last thing I really want to share is, think of being a good example of good money management, because who's paying attention? Who's looking at us? Who do we have the most influence over? It's our babies, our grandbabies, our nieces, our nephews, our youth in our communities. They're the ones who are paying attention to us as a woman, as a leader, as a matriarch, whether you know it or not. They truly are. Okay, that financial tip number 2. Remember, I got 5 tips, so I'm only on number 2. The next one is just really to ensure that your entire family is properly protected. And what do I mean by proper protection? I'm talking about insurance. Life insurance, health insurance, disability insurance, long-term care insurance. Tonight, I'm really going to talk about life insurance. I truly believe that you should have life insurance, apply for it, and have it for every single person in the family, including the children. We get insurance on everything else, our houses, our cars, these cell phones. Lord, hopefully I never ever lose this phone, but guess what? I have an insurance policy on it so I can have it replaced. Why do we not get coverage on our most basic and our greatest asset, in our lives and in your family's lives. That's you. That's you. You are your greatest asset. And I also believe in having coverage on everyone else. Women, we cannot ignore the financial devastation that can happen. It happens, and we're often the ones dealing with it. If there's a premature death in the family, if someone is sick and they can no longer work, or if there's a loss of income, that's where insurance comes to place. We can't ignore it. It's not an option. Wealthy people have millions of dollars in life insurance. It's not even optional for them. And we really have to think about what legacy am I creating for my family? Because life insurance is the easiest way to trade pennies into dollars, potentially millions of dollars, if you have a proper policy established. So I want to just take a moment to really just talk about, what type of life insurance is there? And I'm going to go very brief. This slide that I'm going to show you, I have a whole 1 or 2 hour webinar, a couple of them actually, on just life insurance. So if you're interested in that, connect with me and let me know. So I just want to briefly take a minute or so just to talk about what's available to you, because there's very different types of policies out there. You have temporary life insurance, which is also known as term insurance. And then you have permanent insurance, which could be either whole life insurance or universal life insurance. I know a lot of people think whole life is everything. It's not. It's one type of insurance. So with temporary insurance, term insurance is basically life insurance that you have for a period of time. It's for a term period, typically anywhere from 10 years to a 30-year plan that you would have. But with the policy itself, it's a very low cost way to have coverage. The costs are locked in for that entire term. So if you have a 30-year policy, whatever you're approved at, that cost, that premium payment will be the same for the entire term. So 30 years, it'll be the same amount. It will not change. It will not go up. With term insurance, though, this is pure insurance. This builds no cash in it. It builds no equity. It's like having car insurance. You have it. You hope you don't have to use it, but if you need it, it's there. So 97% of the time, the coverage ends because most people typically outlive their term. They typically live longer than the 10 years or the 30 years that they had actually purchased the plan for. So I don't typically recommend term insurance as a long-term strategy. Really, I only look at it for your short-term needs right now. Maybe you might need it for the next couple years until you can afford a permanent plan, which I'll talk about. One thing, though, that most term insurance policies do offer now, well, at least the companies that I work with, one of the companies I work with in particular, are living benefits. So, because most people will be shied away from term insurance. They're like, well, Shantae, why would I buy that if I'm not getting anything out of it? Well, you got coverage, but a lot of term insurance companies also offer living benefits to where if you became chronically or terminally ill, you'll actually be able to access a portion of your death benefit while you're alive. And then you can, pull that money out and you still have coverage in place. So that's a huge benefit. So you can get out that mindset of, oh, I'm just wasting my money. No, you're not. This is coverage that you can have. Because I've seen people, I have a client right now, 38 years old, diagnosed with cancer out the blue, just crazy. And because he had a term insurance with living benefits, we're in the claim process to where he can actually access some money of that right now while he's going through treatments and while he's taking care of himself through this cancer diagnosis. Another thing about term insurance is that most times there's a period of time where you can actually convert it from a term insurance plan to a permanent plan. And why is that important? Because when you buy life insurance, you have to get approved for it. You have to qualify for it. In most insurance companies, I would say that the first 3 or 5 years, you can actually get the term insurance because maybe you needed something low cost. You had a tight budget. You needed the insurance, so term insurance made sense. But then at some point, you're like, you know what? Now I know I can afford a permanent plan. With the convertibility feature, you can actually the insurance companies will automatically approve you for a permanent plan at your health rating, but then you'll just have to maintain it moving forward at the higher cost. So it's a huge, huge benefit. So when we talk about permanent insurance, so these are built to last your entire lifetime. Most insurance companies now go through age 120 because people are living well into their, centennial years. But with permanent insurance, the costs are higher. Temporary insurance is very low cost, super budget friendly. Permanent insurance, you're looking at probably about 2 times the cost of a term insurance plan, maybe a little bit more. However, the benefit is that these are what we call cash value life insurance policies because they also build equity. You can accumulate cash inside the policy. There's a lot of ways to do that. Super important if you're looking for a way to, have insurance and the cash accumulation. And the nice feature that I really like is that the universal life in particular, they have living benefits built into it. And specifically long-term care benefits, which I'm going to talk about, I think in the next slide or two. It's a very great plan to have where you kind of it's like a Swiss Army knife. You're getting the coverage you need, you're getting some cash accumulation, and you're getting the living benefits like long-term care built into the plan. So I wanted just to share that so that folks have an idea of what coverages are out there. I also believe in other protection from a legal standpoint, because I can't tell you how many times I have conversations with families where, let's say mom and dad are split up and, or divorced or I don't know, just crazy scenarios where someone has money and they can't get access to it. And then we got a new wife who's blocking the family, and the children can't make decisions for their parents. It's crazy. So I always believe in also having legal documents in place to protect your family as well, whether that's establishing a will or a trust, power of attorney documents, power of attorneys for your healthcare decisions and also your financial decisions, healthcare directives, FERPA. So if you have a young adult children, over 18, when they become of age in your resident state, they're legal adults. They're your babies at heart. They're our babies, but according to law, they're legal adults. And you as a parent, you don't even have access to a lot of this stuff anymore for them. I put on here a FERPA documentation because maybe you might have an adult child in school. If they sign and give you the access to their educational records by signing a FERPA document, you'll be able to call the college and say, hey, what's the grades that they're getting? What money do I owe? Because otherwise you'll call the school and they'll be like, we can't tell you that this person is an adult. The last thing I want to share on here is also avoid naming children as beneficiaries, because typically when you have life insurance policies or investment accounts, most times you can name a beneficiary. I always tell folks, avoid naming children, minor children, anyone under 18, because if you pass away and let's say you named your 2-year-old child as the beneficiary of a $100,000 life insurance policy, your 2-year-old child will not get that money until they become an adult. It would be tied up with the courts. There's a very complicated process for that. Hopefully you've put in something in writing that names a guardian for them to get access to that money. You don't want to name minor children. I recognize some people are like, well, I don't trust anyone. Oh, in that case, you might want to establish a trust and name your trust as a beneficiary. But it's super important. I'm not saying you can't do it. You can. You want to avoid it if you really want your child to get that money or have someone in place to take care of them. So let's move on to financial tip number 3. Okay. Also, as I continue talking about saving money for children, I also want to educate folks about setting up the right type of accounts for your kids. And I won't spend too much time on this, but I think it's super important to talk about. Because whether it's your children, your grandchildren, niece, nephew, again, this presentation isn't just for mothers and kids. This is for all women. You might, be an auntie and you want to take care of your niece and nephew, whoever it is. But let's talk about what type of options do we have. What would be some great options if you're trying to save money for your children? The first I would talk about is college savings accounts. This would be like your 529 education savings plans. These are investment accounts that are established for the purposes of growing and investing money to be used to pay for education expenses. And that's a really great account to have because the money that you put in as it grows and invests, you don't pay taxes on it. And then when you pull the money out to pay for education costs, you also don't pay taxes. So it's a really great way to set aside a lot of money for children if you know for sure that they're going to college. One thing with 529 plans too is that when you open the account, you typically have to name a beneficiary. So you have to say, maybe the beneficiary is like I have 3 children. Maybe I might say, well, my oldest daughter is the beneficiary. But what if my oldest doesn't go to college? Then I can change it to my middle daughter. What if she doesn't go to college? Then I can change it to my son. What if my son doesn't go to college? Then I could change it to a family member, a relative, a cousin, like a very close relative, a cousin, a niece or nephew, who can also then be the beneficiary of that investment account. A really cool feature, and again, I'm sorry I didn't create a slide to talk too much in detail about it. A really cool feature with the 529 plan is that based on your state, so every state has their own 529 plan. So the state of Illinois has a 529, it's called Bright Directions. The state of New Mexico has their own, state of Arizona, so on and so forth. If you establish a 529 in your state, typically you're able to also write off a deduction for the amount that you put into that particular 529 on your own state tax returns. So it gives you a benefit. So and every state has their own different limitations, but so typically, like I think I can write off like up to $10,000, maybe more in the state of Illinois, if I were to contribute that much. And that doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter whose 529 you contribute to. It could be, your own child. It could be somebody else's child. It could be, again, a niece or nephew. As long as you have the documentation that you put money in somebody's 529, it could be a 529 for you. You could be a beneficiary of your own account if you plan on going to school. So it's a really cool feature that a lot of people don't know about 529s, is that you get that state income tax benefit. I talked about cash value life insurance, but I really like that strategy for saving money for children, because when we talk about permanent insurance and you get that ability to grow the cash that I mentioned about earlier, that money, you really need to give it time. It doesn't happen overnight. You really need to give it like 10 years, maybe even 15 years or longer. So I really like that strategy for younger children or people, or, if they're newborns, like instead of having a baby shower, tell everybody to, put money in your cash value life insurance policy or your 529 plan for that matter. But I really like that strategy for kids, because the cash that accumulates inside that policy, they can use it for anything. It doesn't have to be just for education. Likewise, if you got one for yourself, it doesn't have to be just for retirement. You can pull that money out and use it for anything. And the last strategy, this is actually a full presentation all on its own. It's called $1 Million Baby Trust. This is actually a way that you as a parent or grandparent using an annuity can actually grow money up to $1 million for a child or a grandchild, or a relative, if you just start saving money now. You could put down a lump sum amount, or you could do like incremental deposits. The strategy itself, again, that's a separate presentation. The strategy basically says if you invest money right now, by the time that child becomes ready for retirement, like at age 65, age 67, I think it was like if you put in $12,500 or $13,000, that money can grow to $1 million by the time that your child or grandchild retires. Super cool strategy. I was thinking of doing that presentation soon. I don't know. I might, but it's really nice. But again, these are just different ways that we can set up money and invest money for our children. Very unique strategies. We don't just have to put it in the bank, because the bank doesn't give us anything. It doesn't earn any type of interest. One point that I also want to talk about is avoid putting any monies in your child's name. Why? Because any monies that the child has will count against them. If they do plan to go to college, it will count against them for their FAFSA. The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid that every student should have to reapply for every year that they go to college. Anything in that child's name will count against them. The schools will be like, oh, you got this 529 is automatically, actually, let me switch to the next screen. If you have a 529, that automatically is what's considered a reportable asset. When you're doing your FAFSA, and again, the FAFSA is just a whole webinar in itself, you have to report certain assets. Anything in a child's name is a reportable asset. Cash, bank accounts, savings accounts. I see a lot of people set up these Christmas accounts, kitty savings accounts. That will count against them. Any investments. I have a client right now. He's like, oh, I'm investing in real estate for my daughters. Okay, that real estate will cost you. It'll affect your child getting financial aid. But what does not affect the financial aid, which is not considered reportable? First of all, your primary home, you don't have to report the value of that or the equity. That is not a reportable asset. If you own a small business, if you have your 401k, you do not have to tell the FAFSA people, the government, how much is in your 401k. That is not a reportable asset. Life insurance policies, as you can see, cash value. You don't have to report any cash that that accumulates inside a life insurance policy. That's another reason why I really, really like that strategy. So avoid naming anything in your children's name. You want to establish the right accounts, whether they go to college or not. I'm saving money for my children. If they choose to go to college, if they don't, they'll have money available to them. So let's move on to tip number 4. And I'm going to try and get through as much of this as quick as possible, but I don't want to rush either. So I talked about this a little bit earlier. We as women, we need to plan for our longevity. Statistically, women live longer than men. If you have a husband, he will typically live longer than the unmarried man, but we typically outlive our men. We become widows or widowers. I'm sorry, I don't know which one it is. I can't think of it. More so than men. So we need to make sure that we have money in place to take care of ourselves when our partners and significant others are no longer there. Especially as we age, long-term care is something that we cannot not talk about. We have to have protection in place to prepare for long-term care. And what is long-term health care? So this is rapidly becoming the most expensive problem that senior citizens and their caregivers are facing right now. They're paying for social services, personal rehabilitation care, daily living assistance. Imagine, I don't know, how many stories have we heard? Maybe it's you, maybe it's someone you know and love. Women who typically will quit their jobs to take care of an aging parent. We're the ones to do that. We're the ones who will say, you know what, I got it. If you have a brother and sister, it's normally the sister who will do that. You can have, care, you have insurance in place rather to take care of those expenses so that you as the caregiver, as the loved one, don't have to do that. But let's talk a little bit more about what would trigger some type of long-term care coverage. So you would qualify for long-term care if you, again, or anyone that you love, if they can't perform 2 of the 6 daily living activities, if they need help walking, bathing, eating, toileting, dressing, transferring is just like getting up out of a chair and moving. If you can't perform 2 of those 6 daily living activities, you qualify for long-term care. And 95% of long-term care falls into this category. It's not just being in a nursing home. I have a client right now whose son was in a car accident, 30 years old, completely paralyzed from the neck down. He qualifies for long-term care. So this is not just a senior thing. Yes, seniors deal with it because that's typically what happens as you get older. You need assistance with some of these things, but it can be for anyone. And especially women, you need to have coverage in place to make sure that if that ever happens to you, you have monies available for your family to help take care of you. Now, how do we do this? So the old school way, the most expensive way, is to where you would actually buy a separate long-term care insurance policy. This is super old school. Don't do it because what we know now statistically, like a lot of people are buying these back in like the 90s, every single year, those costs would increase drastically. And they don't even cover a lot of things, or it's not even enough money. Another thing that most people typically do is they depend on Medicaid or Medicare to hopefully, possibly pay for those costs. To qualify for Medicaid, and again, I'm not here to judge. I was on Medicaid for a period of time. I'm not going to even front about it because I didn't have a corporate job to give me those benefits. So I qualify for Medicaid. And you have to have pretty much little to no assets to qualify for that. Or, if you're over 65, and you can only get Medicare if you're over 65, that's something that a lot of people try to depend on to pay for some of these things. But let's look at what does Medicare actually pay for? Because I think there's a lot of assumptions of thinking like, oh, they'll pay for everything. They'll probably pay for a pretty significant stuff, like home health care. When you meet all these conditions, they need that care. They're confined to their home. They have a health care plan set up by their doctor, and they need, the agency has to participate in the Medicare program. What Medicare does not pay for is full-time nursing care or drugs. They don't pay for like things at home, like housekeeping, someone to help cook, a homemaker, shopping services. Medicare doesn't pay for that type of stuff. And that's the type of stuff that typically most people actually need. They need just help with the little things at home. So I always encourage folks is to look at getting that coverage in place, so that you can have that money available to you if you might qualify for it. We know statistically 70% of any person, 70% of there's a 70% chance that you could qualify for long-term care. I hope you're falling to the 30% and you'll never need something like this. But it's something that as women we cannot overlook. We deal with this. So many stories that I've seen where we deal with it all the time. So how can you take care of this? The easiest way, in my opinion, is to add long-term care as a linked benefit to a permanent insurance policy. Just like I talked about earlier. Remember how I said Universal Life has living benefits, in particular long-term care? It'll literally cost you probably like $2 to $4 extra per month to add a long-term care benefit. And basically how that works is you have the life insurance policy first. And if you ever qualify for long-term care, typically the insurance company will pay you a percentage of the death benefit every single month. If you were to qualify, you'll trigger it so that you'll say, now I can't do 2 of those 6 daily living activities. They'll say, okay, Shantae, you qualify for long-term care. Now we will send you $2,000 a month for the next, 4 years. And that's how that benefit works. And you can use that money however you choose. You can use it to make a medical, a handicap ramp, in the home, or, do adjustments. That's the type of stuff that Medicaid or Medicare won't take care of. So you need that money you can use that money for anything else. You can use it to give to your adult children who pay, who are quitting their jobs or who are helping you out. Or, to pay for, a qualified professional, a healthcare professional to come and help you. You really just want to give yourself options to have some dignity if you need some of those type of services. Because if you don't do anything, ultimately, you'll be paying out of pocket for all of those costs. Or somebody else will drastically have to change their life to step in and take care of you. Or you might have to drastically change your life to step in and take care of someone else. I meet with clients, I work with clients on all type of, asset levels. Some have a little money, some have a lot of money, clients who are $1 million or more. And even my wealthy clients, they always think, well, I don't need that. I could just pay for it. You will drain your assets paying for this type of care. Trust me, I've seen it. I had a client that I was working with, oh my God, probably about 10 years ago. She was staying in the best nursing home. She had a private room costing her $8,000 a month. And every month we were seeing out that $8,000. She had the money, but every month she was taking that money, withdrawing it from her investment account, until it really whittled down to maybe a couple thousand, maybe like $100,000 or less by the time she eventually passed away. That was not the legacy that she wanted to leave behind. She would have rather left those millions of dollars to her loved ones versus having to pay it out to someone for these healthcare costs that she did not prepare for. So it's a huge, huge conversation that we as women, we have to talk about it. So let's move on. Is this stuff helpful? I know I'm over time, but is this helpful talking about this stuff? Let me know in the chat while I move on. And I'm down to my last financial tip, and then I'll have a quick things to wrap up with. So financial tip number 5. Oops, sorry, my pages are twisted around. Okay, perfect. All right, so I want to talk about finishing this conversation about how do we grow our money? How do you grow your wealth? Because I know, again, it doesn't matter how much money you have. You can do all of these things that I'm going to share. So first and foremost, I typically, I believe, one investment account that really makes sense for anybody is a Roth IRA. So an IRA stands for Individual Retirement Account. It's only for one person to open, not two. Sometimes I get that question about, can me and my husband open a Roth? No, one person. We had a comment that said, this is helpful. I wish I knew this 10 years ago. I know, it's okay. You're learning it now. You still have time. We can still learn. We still have time to get some of this stuff in order. So with the Roth IRA, any investment account is managed by our favorite Uncle Sam, the Internal Revenue Service. They make up all the rules about any account that we have that has money in it. So with the IRA, their rule is this is for retirement. They say you can access this money after age 59 and a half, and you get a lot of benefits with this account. So first of all, it's funded with after-tax dollars. So this is money out of your paycheck. A Roth IRA is an investment account that you would open with some type of financial professional or online. This is not through your job. This is totally separate. You have to have reportable income to open the Roth IRA as well. You have to have not cash under the table. You have to have some type of source of an income for the Roth. Now, why would somebody want to open this account? Well, the money that you invest, it's a portfolio to be invested in the stock market, whether it's risky or conservatively. The money that you put in, it grows tax deferred, meaning as that account increases in value, you don't pay taxes on that growth. Other investment accounts you have to pay taxes on. This one you don't. And as long as you follow the rules, you could pull your money out in retirement completely tax-free. I put as you follow the rules because you really have to do it after age 59 and a half. If you pull any money out before then, there's a 10% penalty. But you also have other withdrawals, other opportunities where you can pull money out of the Roth IRA prior to age 59 and a half. That's if you're purchasing your first, if you're a first-time home buyer, purchasing your first home, or if you are also paying for education costs. So I like to recommend a Roth IRA for just the average person because not only can you save your money for retirement, some people are like, well, I want to purchase a house. I want to save money for my kids to go to college. Great. Let's put all our extra savings in this Roth IRA because you can use it for those extra goals in the future if you needed it. So it's a really cool account that really works well, like I said, for about 90% of the population out there. The Roth IRA works. Another thing that you should also look at is professionally managing your workplace retirement accounts. Your 401k, your 403b, your 457. I want to talk about a couple things that a lot of people don't know is probably available on your current workplace account. So I'll take a step back. Number one, as a financial advisor, I technically can't give you advice on an account that I don't personally manage for you. So if you have an investment account at the job, I can look at it. I can help you pick the investments, but I technically, because it's not under my responsibility, I can't manage it, but I can definitely give you a lot of guidance on it. And that's what I want to share today. So the first thing that I would highly suggest, especially if you on here are over age 50, contact your human resources department and ask them, can you take an in-service distribution? An in-service distribution is in a way that you can pull money out of your 401k. You transfer it to another investment account that's not tied to the job, and there's no taxable consequences for that at all. Now, why would somebody want to do that? So typically, and when I say 401k, I'm talking about your 403b, 457, whatever your employer offers you. So typically, when you have a workplace retirement account, they contract, the administrator on the account is a separate investment company. Like it could be Charles Schwab or Fidelity or Nationwide or any of these big name investment companies. And through your employer, you get access to a certain amount of investments to choose from in your 401k. You probably get like maybe 20, 30 options. Oftentimes they're mutual funds. In particular, they're target date funds. So you don't really have a wide spectrum of options, of investment options when it comes to that retirement account. Not to say that's all bad. That's just the reality of it. So in that case, you're limited. You have to choose the best of the best from those investments that are an option to you to create your portfolio in your 401k. So first thing, number one, no one can legally give you any financial advice on your 401k, not even the Charles Schwab or the Fidelity or Nationwide. They can't tell you what to choose. They can give you documents, they can give you all these literature and say, oh, this is what this fund does. And ultimately, no one can give you that advice. It's your responsibility to choose the investment and hope you pick the right stuff. Again, that's why I can give folks guidance. I can tell them and look at it and help them with that. So not even no one as your employer, they cannot give you any type of guidance on what to choose. All they can do is tell you this is the paperwork, this is how you fill it out. So I always typically recommend to some of my the clients who are, like I said, about 50, 55, depending on your workplace, they sometimes offer you the opportunity to take money out and reinvest it elsewhere. That's where you could take that money, reinvest it with someone like me. We would probably put it in some type of traditional IRA or some type of another financial product that would really make sense for it. And then that way you can have access to a chunk of your money where you get access through a professional or through another investment account to access a wide array of investments. So just instead of that 20 or 30, you can build a portfolio with the thousands of investments that are out there. So it's a really good feature. Not every employer offers this. So I just encourage you, talk to your human resource department and say, is this a feature that's available on my account? My 401k or 403b, whatever that is. Can you take it in service distribution? And if you can, contact me or the person who invited you on this webinar, because then we can talk about, okay, great. If you have access to, let's say, $50,000, let's reinvest it. Now we can really do a lot with it. So it's not just sitting in the 401k with those very, very limited options. Another feature that's available is that you might have the opportunity to open what's called a self-directed brokerage account inside your 401k. Because one thing I didn't mention is when you're working and you're active employee of a company, you typically can't pull money out or transfer it anywhere until you're no longer working, until you terminate employment, whether that's by you retiring or moving to another company. So these are options that you can take advantage of while you're still working, and there's no penalties or anything for it. So a self-directed brokerage account is how you have your normal 401k. It's just like opening a separate account inside your 401k, and you can move money from your current 401k into it. And then somebody like me, an advisor, we can actually manage that account directly. So I can't manage the account that's set up through your job, but I can manage the self-directed brokerage account inside the 401k. It's if they allow it. So again, your 401k, your HR department, or you actually might have to call your 401k investment company and ask them, is this an option? Can I open a self-directed brokerage account, SDBA? If you say those words, they'll know what you're talking about. They might call it like a third-party money managed brokerage account. Also, I've seen that term. But then that allows you to take money that's currently in your 401k, move it into that separate account, and then I can come in and recommend a bunch of other investments and really, really help you grow that money. That's what I can be responsible for. When I say I'm talking about any financial professional. So what if you had an old 401k? Because I have a lot of folks, especially right now, people are leaving jobs, they're transferring. You have options too. Because again, now when you are no longer working, you have full access to that 401k. You have a couple options. Number one, you could just leave the money there and leave it in whatever the investment options they were. You should still be able to log in online and access the account and change the investments if you want. Is that the best decision? I don't think so, because remember, you're limited. There's so many options of where you could of how you can invest your money. You also have an option of putting it into your new employer plan. I typically don't recommend that either, because you're moving it from one limited account to another limited account. Not to say, but if you don't know any better, is that a horrible option? No, because I think of like if you have kids playing in the backyard, I don't want them at this backyard and that neighbor's backyard, and I want them all in one backyard that I can keep an eye on. And when you have accounts all over the place, it's very hard to manage and not make mistakes or miss opportunities. So that could work. Another option is you could cash it out. And if you're not 59 and a half, you'll be paying, any money that you cash out, you'll be paying taxes. It'll be added to your taxable income. If you're under 59 and a half, you'll also be paying a 10% penalty. So in some instances, like if you really, 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 really need the money, then, and that's your only option, then so be it. But if you don't, what I fully recommend is to actually roll over that money. Take full control over it, meaning it's not at your old employer, it's not at the new employer. You actually rolled over that money to another investment account. Hopefully work with a financial professional where we can actually reinvest that money and continue to grow it for you. So you have options. And if you need help with some of these options, I'm going to give you resources on how to reach and talk to somebody about what makes sense. Because everybody's situation is totally different. Does it make sense to do all these things? No. Everybody should have their own unique plan about how they can control these monies, because typically at the job is probably one of the main ways that people are saving and investing money. So you want to make good decisions when it comes to that. So let me move on. Is this helpful? You guys haven't told me. Oh, well, I know one person did. Is this helpful? Is this good information that you're learning? Please engage with me in the chat. So as I move on, and I promise I'll be done by 7:30. I'm sorry I'm going over, but I think it's super important to get through all this information. So the last thing I want to talk about when I'm talking about growing your wealth is also, remember, we need to make sure we have money long term in retirement. And we have to look at ways of what guaranteed sources of income do I have access to, and that I can create for myself in retirement. So the first thing I want to talk about is Social Security. I put a couple question marks here because, it's always a conversation of what's going on with our Social Security. You always hear in the news like it's underfunded. We don't really know if it'll be there. I actually took this slide. Well, I'll show you the whole picture, but there's a link. So first of all, if you go to ssa.gov, you can log in, create an account, and download your Social Security statement. I highly recommend everyone do that every single year just to make sure that they're accurately counting your income, that you also have a good idea of, if I were to retire at a certain age, what monies would I be able to, earn? What monies would I be able to get? Oh, we have another comment. Says, great information, so helpful for women, especially to learn about and review. Well, thank you. Are you guys only having the option to message me directly? It's fine. I don't mind the direct messages. But yes, I appreciate that feedback. So when you download your Social Security statement, it's so funny. They have a link there that says, these are just estimates. And they have a link that says, will Social Security be there for me? And it links you to this PDF document. I think it's so funny. So you can actually download this. I can send it to you if you want a copy of it. But they talk about, this is where the Social Security comes from. There's a trust, from old age and survivors insurance and disability insurance, and it's supposed to go in trust funds. And yeah, we know that in the past we've almost depleted all that money in the trust fund. Yeah, we know. And then, but in 1977 and 1983, Congress made substantial changes so that it's, 2.9 trillion in trust funds today. And then they say, this is actual fact. Social Security is telling us, based on the amount of money in the trust funds, they know that they will be able to pay all the benefits in full and on time until 2034. That is 12 years from now that they know for sure that they'll be able to pay that. And then after that, they even tell you, even if legislative changes are not made before 2034, we'll still be able to give you 78% of your benefit that's due. So let's say you were supposed to get $1,000 a month. If they don't figure this out, well, instead of $1,000, now you'll just get $780 a month. I'm not trying to make light of it, but it is a little funny to me. My point being is that, do we want to rely 100% on Social Security? A lot of people do. A lot of people do rely 100% on Social Security because they just don't have any other savings. But we know it's not enough. If you know someone who's living on Social Security, it's probably barely making their living expenses. Barely. I hope that, in my work that I do, that I encourage folks to not just rely only on Social Security, because you can start collecting your benefits as early as age 62. But as you should know, with Social Security, the longer you wait to start collecting the benefits, the older in age that you turn, you actually collect more. The full retirement benefit, you earn that at age 67. So, it's a big factor if you're thinking about retiring early, or, I meet people who's like, well, I want to retire at 50. Okay, great. Hope you have some money to take care of you until you can start getting Social Security. But it's just a reality. It's a reality. A lot of folks, a lot of women are depending on it. We know it's not enough. So, for me, I'm still a little bit younger. I'm not depending on it at all. Like when I do my financial calculations, I'm not even factoring it. Yes, I download my statement, but I'm like, I don't know. I'm just going to use it as hopefully it's there for me. It might not be. But Is it a guaranteed income? If it's there, if you're closer to age, then yes, definitely we want to factor it in that that's something that we can consider in your income in retirement. And then we also have pensions. If you're a lucky person still, working at a company where you still have a pension that's available to you, only about 15% of employers still offer pensions. That typically is money that's something that we can rely on in retirement. A pension is a benefit that the company creates for you. It's like their thank you for working with us for so many years and over your income, and they calculate a monthly benefit that they'll pay you for life. As long as you're alive, that you'll get that amount. And then an annuity, which I didn't again go too deep into. I have a whole webinar just on an annuity. But it's again a really cool feature that you have to where you can. It's an annuity is a product, an insurance product. It's an insurance, a product that you will get with an insurance company, and basically just real high level how it works is you create a contract with the insurance company through the annuity. You say, okay, I'll give you a lump sum amount of money. And the insurance company says, okay, Shantae, thank you for giving us this lump sum. Let's say you give them $100,000. We're now going to take that $100,000 and create a lifetime income stream for you for the rest of your life. This is an annuity with an income benefit. So now you've actually created like your own pension for yourself. You've given them this amount of money, and now they're able to pay you out a certain monthly amount of money every single month for the rest of your life. Now, what happens if you pass away? Whatever is left in that account value, that will go on to your beneficiaries. Or if you live a long life, then you won. You probably collected more money out of the annuity than what you actually put in. So again, it's a really unique strategy. I like talking about that with folks who are about to retire, who have a 401k. It's a really good plan to consider for rolling that money over into. Remember I talked about you could roll it over. You can roll it over into an annuity. If a lot of folks, sometimes I see folks who just have a lot of money sitting in a bank account, like in a CD or a savings account. An annuity would be a great option for that because again, you can get a little bit more guarantees, and it'll probably grow better than just sitting there. So I want to, as I wrap up, at the end of the day, we, me, myself, my colleagues, a lot of my partners, we don't want any woman left behind. And I hope with this information, you're empowered, you took some notes, you're able to really say, okay, now there's some different things that I can think about for myself, for my children, for my adult children, my grandchildren. I encourage, if you have any questions, feel free to put it into the chat as I go through these last couple of slides, because I want to just share a couple of resources that I have. Oh, good. We have one question. Where do you go for an annuity? So you can talk to me. I'd be happy to talk to you about that. But typically, a life insurance agent, any life insurance agent will probably have an annuity that their company offers. There's a lot of them out there. There's tons and tons of different annuities. So for those of you who know me personally, I can definitely have that conversation with you. But if you already work with a life insurance agent that you trust and you don't want to work with anyone new, they should be able to help you establish that too. Cool. So thank you, Susan. Detailed and informative. Good. So I just want to share a couple resources that I share. So I know that, again, this particular webinar was shared with a lot of people, and I'm super excited because I want as many people to get access to the resources. This isn't all about me. I just try to make as many things available to as many people as possible. So next Thursday, so this presentation was a part of Women's History Month. So I was making all my presentations geared around women. Next Thursday, the 31st at 7 p.m., I will be doing a presentation, again, just for women, but more so focusing on having a career in the financial services industry. If what I'm doing, if you are interested in learning and teaching people how money works and becoming a financial educator, and you want to learn how to make money from that, definitely join this webinar next Thursday at 7 o'clock. If you're on my email list, you will get access to registration. The registration link is on there as well. You go to bit.ly/Wealthway Women March 2022 that you can definitely register. I would encourage you. I'm really going to talk about how can you make extra money on the side. Because I know I talk about a lot of good things, but at the end of the day, a lot of times we just need more money in our pocket. So I really want to talk about that and how you can use our platform, what I do, and do it for yourself, for your communities. This opportunity is open to all, and I'm really grateful to have that conversation. And then April is Financial Literacy Awareness Month. So I'm going to be super busy. I think I have 13 presentations that I'm already scheduled for that people have invited me to come in and talk about. 8 of them, well, these 7 right here are from that I'll be hosting. So all of these will be on Zoom, all in Central Standard Time. The How Money Works, HMW stands for How Money Works. In the book itself, they go through different concepts, different teachings, and so there's actually 5 different presentations from the book that are built from the book that I'll be teaching on April 6th. For all my Native folks here online, I will be doing a special presentation specifically for Native communities called Native Financial Sense. That'll be on April 6th at 7 p.m. And then April 18th. So remember how I was starting to talk about ways you can save money for kids? I'm going to go through a full presentation on that for saving and investing money for minors. So that'll be another unique presentation that I will be sharing. Are you talking about the link to register for the 31st, Kimberly? Let me put that in real quick. Okay, let me type it out. Sorry guys, I didn't separate this separately. March 2022. Okay, yep, Wealth Wave Women March 2022, all lowercase. So lastly, my last slide that I'll share here, for those of you who want to take action. I talked about a lot of things on tonight's webinar. I know it was a lot, maybe a little overwhelming. I hope not. I hope it was super informative. But don't just take this information and do nothing with it. We always hear the term knowledge is power. Apply knowledge is power. Apply the stuff that you learned tonight and put it into action. That's the only time that it really means, where it becomes anything meaningful. So for those of you who have not connected with me yet, or even if you have, maybe you've been on my email list for years and we just never talk one-on-one, I always offer free consultations. They're 30-minute Zoom sessions with me. This is just to sit down, see what your current financial situation is, and if I can help you. You might have some different goals that I didn't talk about tonight. Obviously, me being an expert in this industry, I could pretty much help everybody with any and everything. I would encourage you to definitely take the time to schedule that consultation with me. And I do have this link ready. So that we could just get on Zoom. If I can help you, I'll let you know. And one thing I always get asked, Shantae, how do you get paid? I don't charge for my services at all. I made it very intentional that, well, for now I don't, that I want to help as many people as possible. And oftentimes the barrier that discourages folks from talking to a professional is they think it costs money. I don't charge for that consultation. And even if I choose to take you on as a client, I don't charge. So how do I make my money? When you actually buy the life insurance and you set up the investment account, that's how I make my money, because I connect you to, a company that you probably otherwise would not have connected to, and they are the ones who compensate me. So that's how I make my money. That's my incentive. So my goal is to make sure that I give you the best recommendations, and then when you act on those recommendations, when you apply your knowledge and actually open the life insurance, you open that investment account, those companies pay me. So that's, in short, how I get paid. Another thing is that, again, my email newsletter, I send out a lot of emails. I know some folks on here can attest to that. I'm very good about communicating over email and letting folks know about all those events that I just shared about. Those are sent out through my email list. Also, they'll be shared on my social media as well. But if you want to get access to me sending you financial tips, resources, videos, blog articles, invitations directly for these events, email me at shantae.moore@howmoneyworks.com and just say, hey, Shantae, give me your first and last name, because I do need that to add it to my system. And then I'll be able to put you on my listserv so that you can get in contact with me. And then lastly, do connect with me on social media. I'm going to put all my socials in the chat box. One thing that would be super, super helpful is if you can go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. Let me pull that up real quickly. I put all this stuff on, here it is. I put all of this stuff on YouTube. Anytime I record a video, you could just search Shantae Moore, Certified Financial Educator, and it'll take you to my channel. Please hit subscribe. I post all type of videos, like stuff that I typically don't even share on my normal webinars, little tips and, little things that you could learn about. I have playlists of all my presentations that I've done in the past. I have I have 29 here. Geez, I didn't know that. Oops, not that. Sorry, but they're listed here to the right. So all type of presentations that I've recorded in the past, it would be so greatly appreciated if you could just go to my channel. Again, search Shantae Moore, Certified Financial Educator, and subscribe. I'm trying to really blow up YouTube. I feel like I can really do that. So I'm really getting trying to get more active on there. And then also like my business page on Facebook as well as Instagram, because again, I'm constantly posting a lot of unique little tidbits every single, pretty much 6 days out the week, sharing resources. So that's it, ladies. I told you I'll be done by 7:30. Thank you guys so much for hanging in there with me and for joining me. I'm gonna hit the stop recording button, but thank you so much for everyone who hung in and was able to join in for tonight's presentation.